Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on both The Flash and Stargirl. So this week we will be hitting the halfway point exactly, episode 7 in Stargirl's second season, which itself has just pumped up the jam, if you want to call it, in regards to where it's at in its, current story. But heading into Stargirl season 2, well actually long before it even hit our screens, we knew we were getting our first little taste of a crossover event between both The Flash and Stargirl when the news came out that Garrick, played by John Wesley Shipp, would be guest starring in a JSA focused episode which would cement his foundations on Earth-2. Now, at the time of this news coming out, we weren't really sure what the episode could be about due to the fact we didn't know too much about the season. Like, we didn't know necessarily what was going on, the context around that episode or that point in the season. But now we have the synopsis for this episode, which gives us a very good idea about what's going down in this episode in the context of what we have seen so far this season. But we also know more about this episode that we can add to thanks to stuff that Garrick himself, John Wesley Shipp, has said through various interviews in the lead up to all of this happening. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your various opinions in the comment section down below. You excited to see Garrick show up in Stargirl and to see what happens there? I'm excited. And even if I guess you don't watch Stargirl, this would be a good episode just to watch, I guess, just because Garrick's there. And if you like it, the feel of it, then you can catch up with Stargirl. So, yeah. But yeah, of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you're looking forward to this as well, why not drop a like on the video to show all that. But yeah, here is the synopsis for episode 9 of Stargirl Season 2, otherwise entitled Summer School, Chapter 9. John Wesley Shipp guest stars as Garrick. As Eclipso takes aim at the Whitmore Dugans, Pat is reminded of painful memories from his past involving the original JSA and their fight to take down Eclipso. Meanwhile, Mike is forced to confront the guilt he feels for his role in Icicle's death, and Barbara comes face to face with someone from her past. Finally, Courtney struggles to hold on to hope after Eclipso targets those around her. So yeah, it sounds like there's a lot going on in this episode. That's actually a bigger synopsis than we're used to getting with Stargirl, so it sounds like this episode is going to be jam-packed. And it makes me wonder what maybe the setup in, at the end of the previous episode is, to, push the ball with this episode. It'll be interesting. But yeah, to start off, Pat Dugan is reminded of painful memories of his past. So of course, this is going to cue the flashbacks with Garrick and the original JSA. So this is going to include the original Owlman, so Rex Tyler, Wildcat, Ted Grant, Starman, of course, Sylvester Pemberton, and I would assume the original Dr. Midnight, Dr. Charles McNider. They're the ones that are believed, like all of them are believed to be in these flashbacks alongside Garrick's Flash. Now, we know that all of them, I think it's except for, I think the only one that hasn't been confirmed is the original Dr. Midnight, but everyone outside of that, we know that they're there due to John Wesley Shipp saying he worked with the actors or those actors that played the version of those characters in various interviews and on social media since filming this episode. And also, there was a behind-the-scenes photo that came out when they were filming this episode that probably shouldn't have come out. And there is another character in those photos, which I won't say just because I think it's so big of a spoiler. Like, the other ones there, it's JSA Flashbacks. You would assume that they're going to be there, but there's one character that was involved in that filming, or at least was on set, that I don't want to say just because it could be a spoiler. Some of you might know who it is if you can remember back to, I guess, Twitter or maybe Instagram when that happened. It was like when they were filming the episode, but I won't say it here just because it could be a big spoiler. But yeah, based off what we've seen so far this season with Stargirl, I would assume that these flashbacks with the JSA would take place following the death of Rebecca McNider, or, Dr. Midnight's daughter, like we saw in episode 1 for this season. And of course, that's been brought up like a couple or a few times after that recently. I guess the big question around these flashbacks is whether we see how specifically they dealt with Eclipso and took him down. But based off the fear and the concern and just everything that's going on with Pat and what he's shown, after the return of Eclipso or leading up to the return of Eclipso as well, I do wonder whether they didn't stop Eclipso themselves in the past and it was actually someone else that dealt with him and trapped him in the Black Diamond. Whether that be the Injustice Society or, I don't know, someone else. It is important to remember that the Black Diamond, which held Eclipso, was in the possession of William Zarek, or the Wizard, so there is the possibility they had something to do with the capture of Eclipso. Another possible option is that maybe the person who trapped Eclipso originally was Starman. Now, I say that because it seemed like Eclipso specifically needed the cosmic staff to break him out of that black diamond. So I'm wondering whether it's one of those things where whoever traps you in there is the one that has to break you out, or maybe the item specifically that trapped him in there has to be the thing that breaks him out. So that's why he needed the cosmic staff. Or it could just be something where the cosmic staff is so powerful, it was able to do that job or break him out at the very least. So it'll be interesting to see if that gets explained in this episode. I guess it just depends whether we see the events in the past that led to his capture. That's, I guess, the big question, whether we actually see anything to do with the cosmic staff and its connections and everything like that. But yeah, because there's so much other stuff going on in this episode, which we'll talk about soon after this, I do wonder where they just get the meat and potatoes and all the stuff that needs to involve these flashbacks, and then they'll explain everything else in the present day in, say, the following episode and the episodes to come. So this is the fifth last episode of the season, I think it is. So there's still 4 more episodes afterwards where they can, explain how they can capture Eclipso, and they don't necessarily have to do it in these flashbacks, because, Pat would have some sort of idea. It's just whether they have the utilities or the weaponry to actually do that. But speaking of, connections and everything like that, will this episode explain what happened to Jay Garrick on this Earth specifically before we met him on The Flash, or, before he starts to play into the post-crisis timeline on Earth Prime? Or do they allude to certain things and then allow the finer details around all that to play out at a later date? And to be completely honest, leading up to the episode before this synopsis came out, I would have said there might be some sort of, setting up there, or at least a bit more set up than what I think there will be now, just due to the fact that it seems like this episode's got so much going on in it, including these flashbacks and other stuff. I have a feeling they might just do maybe a slight alluding to, that latter part I was talking about then. So they might just slightly allude to something, and then they'll deal with it at a later date, whether it's on another episode of Stargirl in season 3, maybe there's another sort of crossover thing, or it's on an episode of The Flash and Jay Garrick dives into some stuff there. I don't see it happening too much in this episode outside of maybe like one sort of line of dialogue which maybe explains something. But it's very important to remember these flashbacks might take place, 5 years before that night that the JSA was defeated by the ISA, like we saw in episode 1 of season 1. So there's no need to explain what happened to him because we're stuck in those flashbacks. Unless Pat says something in the modern day, what happened to Jay Garrick or anything like that, I don't know if they can really set too much up in regards to his connections to what happened on Stargirl to how we see him now on The Flash. But moving into other stuff with this episode, Mike is quote-unquote forced to confront the guilt around Icicle's death. Now, I wonder whether Cameron Marquette, Jordan's son or Icicle's son, or, Icicle Jr., learns about what actually happened to his father at the end of last season. He knows his father was murdered and, killed by a truck. Because earlier in the season, we saw Mike brush over it when Yolanda was trying to see if he felt anything following that, or any sort of PTSD and all these issues that she was facing, which he sort of brushed over. It's oh, well, no, there was no intention there. It was a bit of an accident. He just popped up in front of me. But maybe when Mike sees the fallout of what he did and how it's actually impacted someone's life, that could be a major reality check, and everything changes and his perspective on that whole situation does a complete 180. But another question around this is whether Cameron Marquette finds out on his own accord, or will his grandmother tell him. She's been weird and suspicious for the last few episodes, if not the entire season. Maybe she tells him, or maybe it's Eclipso. Maybe Eclipso shows that vision, gives Cameron a vision or something, and he sees that happen. Could be anything along those lines. But regardless of how Cameron finds out, or if he finds out at all, Mike has he's got some baggage to carry in this episode potentially. One part of the synopsis which caught my interest was Barbara comes face to face with someone from her past. I have no idea who it could be. We know she has ties to Blue Valley in the past, so maybe it's just someone in Blue Valley that's there. Yeah, I have no idea what it could be. If you have any ideas, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm not too sure exactly what could be going on with Barbara in this episode. But then finally, Courtney is struggling to hold on to hope due to what Eclipso is doing to those around her. Now, we know that Yolanda and Rick have focused episodes before this one. So episode 7, this week's episode, is Yolanda. Next week is Rick, episode 8. And then we have this episode, episode 9. So we could be seeing the emotional downfall of the other JSA members in these next couple of, upcoming episodes. And then you throw in the fact that the synopsis does say that Eclipso takes aim directly at Courtney's family in this episode. And we know that Courtney is a pretty optimistic and go-getter of a character. but Eclipso is the Prince of Darkness. So that will be a hard task to come over and take on. So I guess, can Courtney overcome Eclipso? You'd hope so, but it's definitely not a certainty. And you think with like a few episodes to go after this one, they might try and stir the pot and make some bad stuff happen where there's a big challenge for Courtney to face. So I don't know if we end this episode with Courtney being overly happy, and then also some stuff from the past could, line up, and be a parallel to something happening in the present day. I think this is going to be a good episode. And also, I read and listened to 2 or 3 interviews with different cast members of the show, and they all pinpoint episode 9 as their favorite episode of the season, which includes the finale and everything like that. Episode 9 is their favorite, and they think it's the biggest episode. So that gets me excited, and it should get you excited as well. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'll be awesome if you could drop a like on it, show your support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about all of this. What you're looking forward to the most in this episode. I'm sure it's Garrick, but maybe it could be Barbara coming face to face with someone from her past. It could be that. Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.